Hey y'all, what's up? Big Wooly here, and welcome back to another episode of our All the Mods 10 Let's Play. This is something like episode 28, and well, we're just continuing episode 27. We need to get our nuclear waste going for a number of reasons. We're gonna need to get into that antimatter sooner or later for the star as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. For those of you that watched the last episode, the clipboard's kind of going to look pretty much the same. We need to hopefully craft our ultimate induction provider. I did AFK in the world overnight. And then our quantum multi-threader. We started that craft at the beginning of last episode. It should be done for us to go stick on the board. I just simply forgot to go put it on the board after the last episode finished. So let's go ahead and go grab that out. Where do you go in the Nexium emitter? Let's see. You go in the middle. Cool. So there's that. The craft we started at the beginning of the last episode. Now, for today's, we should, in theory, just be able to come in here and it's what? Induction provider. There we go. These things. So the induction cell, induction provider. Okay, so we're going to need to be able to craft up all the way up to the top tier. We're going to need patterns for them, so let's just get to it and make us some patterns. We are out of patterns in our wireless terminal. Let's craft up a stack to toss in here. There we go. All right, so everything here is already being auto-crafted. The lithium dust we should have. Everything there is being auto-crafted. Everything there is being auto-crafted. And everything there is already either being crafted or craftable. Let's toss in these, and then we can take a look at starting to work on the piece. So the gravitational modulating unit. So this is the goal of today's episode, or I doubt we'll get there, but we're gonna give it a good college try. So now we'll notice unobtainium is already being in there. Nether stars are already being crafted. Atomic alloys are being crafted, and now the ultimate induction providers can be crafted. So one of the other things we're going to need to get into is HDPE sheets. These HDPE sheets are another mechanism process that's in that rabbit hole that we haven't gone down, but we're going to have to go down it. There's really only one way to get these, and they're from the HDPE pellets, which we've got to go through the whole reaction chamber process to get to. We will save that for probably yet another episode working on our gravitational modulating unit. There's just a lot of mechanism in here. Let's take a peek and make sure there's nothing else we're missing. So jetpack, I think we can actually just craft it. You know, we can go ahead and get that one out of the way. The jetpack unit takes a jetpack. Yep, and we can tell it to make a tank. There we go. So we actually, I think, need 2 of these jetpack units. So we'll need 2 jetpacks. We can go ahead and craft those, just toss them in storage so that they're there and waiting. I don't really feel the need to make a recipe on these because I don't think we're going to need a bunch of them. So we can then add in this jetpack card. That's one other thing I want to cover with you there that we haven't talked about. Let's go ahead and put the pattern in for the jetpack card while we're here. And we're going to put in the pattern for this base, knowing that we need HDPE because we've already talked about it. And then we're going to go ahead and put in this because that'll give us everything we need to craft it. And, you know, once we get all these processes done, we should just be able to request our gravitational modulating unit. So that is the other thing I want to talk to you about was we did in between episodes. I went ahead and got our refined glowstone going. It's the same process we did for the refined obsidian. I think this was an on-stream thing. We covered that on stream, but I just set up another osmium compressor here, feeding it glowstone dust and osmium with refined glowstone being the product, and it has a drawer that's stopping it, and we will always have 2,000 of them in stock. Don't have to wait on it to craft unless we need more than 2,000 refined obsidian at a time, or refined glowstone at a time. So I don't think we're gonna surpass that. But now let's head on in here and let's get started down the road towards our nuclear waste. Boy, oh boy, it's an ominous sign when the first thing they want us to do is to make a radiation suit. This is probably my least favorite part of this is it will melt down your base. I mean, we are strong enough at this point with all of our crystal hearts and our heart amulet and all of the things that we're doing for extra health, you know, and then I'm eating all the Polonium carrots as my primary food source, as my primary food source out of the backpack, which gives us saturation and regen, and it's, you know, they're pretty beefy. So I think we're okay. But we're going to make it anyways, because that's what the questline wants us to. We're not going to put it on autocraft. I don't feel the need. It's basic stuff, lead and some orange dye, and then lead and some black dye for the boots. And this will give us protection while we are in radiation if we somehow melt down our base. But luckily, if we do melt it down, it'll just be in here, and it hopefully won't impact anything else. So to stick with the theme of trying to stay in this chunk-loaded chunk, what I want to do real quick, just so we don't get out of bounds here, is I'm going to grab some wool. Oh my gosh, we ought to take that thing out. We almost have 1 million wool. I'm going to take some white wool, and then that way I don't have to have chunk borders on, and that way we know where the edge of the chunk is so that we can try and stay inside of it. I'll probably do some elevator blocks and go layers if we need it. So just to give you that heads up. Okay, so for starters, we can go about this 2 ways. We can make a muffling upgrade, or we can just come in here and use the muffler and shut this thing off. So resistive heater, we're going to mute. Rotary condensator. There we go. That would have driven me crazy this whole episode. I don't know about you guys. Now, we've got our hazmat suit. What's next? Fission reactor, dangerous. Explosion, radiation. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, it's actually not joking, and it does last a really long time. It says several in-game weeks, so a day is, 20 minutes if you don't skip the night with a sleep. So you could be talking a couple of hours before your base is unradiated. So we're going to stay away from that. Now, it's time to gather materials we'll need to build the reactor. Just like most multi-blocks, they can be custom sizes. They must be cuboid with a minimum outside size of 3 wide, 4 tall, and 3 deep, with a maximum of 18 by 18 by 18. Their example they're going to have us do is a 5 by 5. I guess we'll just roll with that for now. I don't know how much we need. I feel like we're probably going to need bigger reactors for everything in the long run, but if they're going to teach us how to do it and maybe not blow ourselves up, let's follow the guide. So for now, 5 by 5. If you need help building it, hold W while over the fission reactor. And they've got a ponder in here that'll help show us how to build it. Cool. So we just need to bookmark some stuff and get some patterns tossed in here. Make sure we have all of these materials being generated. I can already see one we don't. Dang it. Patterns, we'll do those. We'll talk about the one that's missing, and then we'll go solve that over in mechanism land in our basement. This casing, we've got everything we need. And then the reactor glass, this is one where we're missing something. So right here, you'll see it needs enriched iron. I did not toss enriched iron in because really other than I guess this use and maybe some others, there's not too awful much. Oh, it's literally this one crafting pattern. Yep. Okay. So there's one crafting pattern that needs enriched iron. We're just going to set it up automatically like we have with all of our other enrichment stuff over there in our mechanism area. I'll set up an enrichment chamber with all the proper exports. We'll toss it in a drawer. We'll keep 2,000 in stock. Dunzo. The reason we haven't done it before, though, is because the main thing that this is used for is you just run it through an enrichment chamber again, or the infusion, metallurgic infuser again with carbon, and it makes steel. So in mechanism as a single pack, that's how you get your steel. But here we need it for reactor glass, and I'm sure that's the way mechanism normally does it. But so let me go get that set up. We have our patterns right here. We'll toss those 2 in. So I'm going to go set up an automation that you guys have already seen, and I'll show you it when I'm done, and we'll move on. All right, y'all, here we have it. Enriched iron. It's right over here with all of our other enrichment processes that are in the metallurgic infuser, our infusion processes, I guess I should say. Well, it's both. It's enrichment and infusion. So same setup. I actually just used my configuration card, grabbed the config off of that metallurgic infuser, put it right here, and coincidentally, that fills this P2P tunnel with all 32 channels we have available to us. So we are maxed out in mechanism land. If we need more mech stuff automated, it's going to need a new P2P tunnel. It's going to need to be in a new location so that we got room to build it out. Because, I mean, it's kind of cool that it almost goes all the way to the wall, leaves us enough room to kind of get around everything, and it doesn't feel that awful crowded over here. So I was trying to avoid how FTB Sky's Expert turned out, where I had just rows and rows of machines. It looks like it's probably going to end up being the same. I guess thus is a big kitchen sink mod pack. So that's making it. Let's get back to the quest book. Let's pop back into, I don't have to go anywhere. Look, it's convenient that our compact machine that has our mechanism reactors is in mechanism land. Gee, did I do that on purpose? I don't even remember. All right. What do you want now? Oh, we got to actually make this stuff. How much did we need to make? Does anybody remember? Put it in the comments below if you remember. So now we should have all the things we need. Let's see what it says to do. Yada, yada, yada. Give me something good. Boo, a steel casing. Okay. Woo. Okay. Inside the reactor, we are going to need fuel control. So we need fission fuel assembly. It wants us to make 2 fuel assemblies and 1 control rod. The inside of the reactor is built up of pillars using several fusion assemblies along with a control rod placed at the top. There can be anywhere from 1 to 15 blocks in height depending on the size of the reactor. For this build, we'll put 2 of the assemblies in the center of our multi-block and then the control rod on top. If I remember right, it's like the control rod's not supposed to touch the top of the thing either, but maybe that's the thing of the past. All right. Here we go. We're going to put these on recipes. We're going to kind of just go through and read through what we need to do. We'll get all the stuff together, then we'll build it. For us, to take anything in or out of the reactor, we need reactor ports. They can be configured using the configurator. We probably need to make one of those. Every fission reactor needs a minimum of 4 ports. Coolant input, coolant output, fissile fuel input, and waste output. For the starter build, we'll put them on each of the sides. Sweet. Okay, so there's that. Now, we need a failsafe. Aha! Afraid of blowing up your fission reactor and causing a massive radiation leak. Don't worry, we all are. Insert terrible flashback here. Yes. I mean, actually, if we go back to the starter base, there's a sign that CryptoShape put down when he escaped his base to die to his radiation poisoning at my base. He was irradiated to death, but he came to share his last moments with me. It was touching. You should have been there. So, how can we prevent such a catastrophic disaster? By creating redstone circuit breaker using fission reactor logic adapters. Now, these aren't 100% guaranteed to stop an explosion, but they're absolutely nice to have. They allow us to control the reactor using redstone. With just one, you can use a lever to turn it on or off. However, we are going to use them for damage control. You can set them to give off a redstone signal based on a certain condition within the reactor, like damage critical or insufficient fuel. It's useful for setting up a circuit breaker to shut off the reactor if those ever happen. Neat. Okay. I love that it explained that to me because I am clueless on all that stuff. All right. So need a visual for the circuit breaker. Yes, we will. Okay. Heck yeah. It even tells us what to do. Everything there, stuff we've already got. And we just need the adapters it's told us to make. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. I'm going to get everything that it says we need together, and we will move on to building the reactor. All right, we're back. Got everything together. I even got the stuff for the circuit breaker that it says we need at the end. So I have a little extra of this, but if you want to take a pause and look at what you need, here we go. All right. It's a 5x5, so we're going to come and try and leave that 2-block space around the outside. 5. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we put 1 too many. The only thing I didn't do is I forgot to make our configurator, but we will do that in a second. So there's going to only be 1 block between the chunk border and this, but that's fine because I really just want to try and keep, a way to get around the outside. So you make a 5x5. It is solid on the bottom. And then we're going to come up 2, 3, 4, 5. And then across, we're not going to fill in the sides because it wants us to use glass so that you can see in. So we will just follow their instructions here. All right, and then glass. Leaving this open for a port. It wants us to do a port in the middle on each side, actually. And then before we put the rest of the glass in, let's pop in the middle. And it's 2 fuel rods and a control rod assembly. Now we're going to turn on hover, and let's come up here and just get some glass put in. Oh gosh. Wooly is not good at placing blocks. Let's turn on our magnet. There we go. Now we'll fill in the rest. And then we're going to have to break some out once we go look at the circuit breaker thing, or I guess we could just not do this side and let's go take a peek. So, using some vanilla mechanics and 2 fission reactor logic ports, we can create a simple circuit breaker to trip and turn off the reactor in case things get crazy. To do this, we need a single piece of redstone, yada yada. We got all that. On one of the faces, we will want to put... Oh, we're going to have to move an input-output because of this. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. On one of the faces, we'll want to put a logic adapter down and then skip a block above it and then place another. Set the top adapter to activation and the bottom activate to damage critical. Next, in front of the bottom one, we're going to put a building block down and stick a piece of redstone on it leading from the adapter. Piston facing up, sand or gravel on top of it, an observer to the top port. And then whenever it has critical damage, it will activate the bottom adapter, causing the sand to rise, and that'll activate the observer and turn off the reactor. So long as we're not heating up too fast, this should, in theory, stop the reactor before it explodes, but it could still explode if your fuel burning rate is too high. So we'll put this here. We will fill in this glass and have all of this on this side. I guess we could still have done it on the other one. Whoa. Alrighty then. Well, that was fun. I crashed a desktop. Not real sure what happened there. But anyways, we're back. And so we set up this side. And then now to set up the little circuit they wanted us to run. So it said throw down any block. And then we're going to throw that down. And then we needed our redstone to trigger it. Let's move this wool over because I should have grabbed out another piece of stone. And I did not. Now... piston. Can we rotate this with like a wrench? That'd be super cool. Nope. Okay. So we want it facing up. That should be easy. We can just hover up and do it. There we go. And then on top of that, it wants us to place a piece of sand. So I made a purple sand because I'm big woolly. All right. The logic thing there, logic thing there. If we toss in glass, it should complete our reactor, and then we can set the settings. The last piece is it does want the observer in front of this one up top, but that is just as simple as boop. Oh, wrong way. So it said for the top one, we wanted to set it to activation, and the bottom one, we wanted to set to critical waste level. And then once those two were set, it should, in theory, shut off when it sees critical damage. There we have it. So what I ended up having to doing for me, and if you got a better idea on how to get it to go, or if there's a wrench that'll turn them, let me know, because I feel like a dummy. So I just put them in, set the setting, then I broke it, got in there, put the extra piece of sand there, shift click it, from behind. I don't know why that was so hard. Anyways, this is a completed fission reactor. So this is what we're going to need to feed our fissile fuel, which we have not started to even make yet in here. Wow, crashing your desktop in the middle of an episode will get ya. Alrighty, so that gets the reactor done. Let's see what the quest book has in store for us. Check the box, right click anywhere, we'll see the interface. On the left, you have 2 tanks, one for coolant, one for fissile fuel. On the right, you have one for nuclear waste and one for heated coolant, which will most likely be steam. Temperature bar, all of that. To adjust the burn rate of the fissile fuel, see more statistics. Click the I tab. Here you can adjust how much it burns per tick. Cool. We've made a thing that can blow up our base. That is wonderful. All right, so we're going to want to put a sink down. Let's see. When burning fuel, it needs creates a massive amount of heat, needs coolant, pump water into one of the reactor ports. This will be heated, and be converted to steam, which can be used to create power with an industrial turbine. Sodium can also be used and is much more efficient, allows for higher burn rates and lower core temperatures. Okay, so let's get a sink and toss it down. All right, went ahead and made our configurator. It's just 2 iron, osmium, and steel. That is what we can use for setting all of the various mechanism cables, pipes, configuring block. I mean, it does everything mechanism. So we made a sink here, and then in that vein of everything mechanism, we're going to want to use mechanism pipes because their transfer rates and the way the math works with the pack is different than with other pipes, and we definitely want to use mechanism stuff for mechanism. We're going to go ahead and just get some patterns in here so that the system can make us everything, and we already have everything we need all the way to ultimate tier on AutoCraft, so we can just request the top tier and not have to deal with changing them out later. I will show you guys a little tip real quick on these as we go through. You can upgrade your pipes in place using the materials without having to break them, upgrade them, and then replace them. It comes in real handy when they're full of things like nuclear waste that you don't want to create a big mess in your base. Being able to upgrade the capacity of the pipe in place saves you having to empty it or worry about radiation. So we are just now going to do the water one. We did those together. Same thing we've done for all the other nested crafts. I just got all the recipes pinned, and then I'm making a recipe for each of them, tossing them in the auto crafter, and then we can request whichever tier of pipe we would like. One more time, at mech pipe. There we go. So we're going to request a bunch of the ultimate tier just to have them. But for demonstration purposes, I'm also going to request just a single stack of the basic tier. And the reason for that is I want to show you this nifty trick. So if they're placed down in your world, like so, and you're like, oh gosh, I really don't want to have to break it because you got this complicated setup over here and over there, and you don't want to lose the fluid or gas or chemical or whatever is inside the pipe. Well, if you take out the alloy of the right kind, so the next tier above this, let's just go at mech, what is it, alloy? If you go to the next tier and you grab out the alloy that you need of each type, you can right click it in place. So the next one is blue, or is it red? It's red. So if you just right click it with the alloy, it will use 1 alloy for up to each 8 segments of pipe, and you can upgrade your pipes as they sit in place all the way to your ultimate tier without ever having to break them. So you don't worry about losing chemicals or fluids that are like that's your buffer and then you're out a bunch, because these pipes hold a bunch. They hold a ton. And so breaking them, you can often lose a bunch that'll set you back, you know, a couple hours of production in your world or whatever. That comes in super handy in mechanism. So back to the reactor at hand. We're going to put this down here. We're going to toss our configurator right here, and we're going to tell it that it can pull. That's just a shift right click, just like with pipes mod or any of the other wrenches. Usually you have to shift right click on them. So now we are feeding this with coolant right there, being done. The next things. Next, let's see what it says we need to do. I think we have to get into making our fissile fuel, which we may have already been supposed to be making from another process. The fusion reactor needs fissile fuel to run. If you look it up in JEI, I bet you'll get overwhelmed with everything you need to make it. It's okay. You've got this one step at a time. It all boils down to creating uranium hexafluoride. Let's focus on making these 2 gases, hydrofluoric acid and uranium oxide. Okay, so it's going to walk us through the process. Thank God, because I'm lost. Are you guys? Tell me. Tell me down below. All right, so it looks like we're ready to rock and roll, but long story short, we're not. But building this thing is fun to see, and let's see if we can get through the rest of it in the time we have left in today's episode. So we're going to need to pop back over into our main mechanism quest line, and even though we don't need the tier for ore processing, we do need to make our sulfur here in the chemical oxidizer, and we're going to need to make, what is it, sulfur oxide or something. But that comes back here for the byproduct. So when I said we wanted to save our brine and make our lithium, there's a reason. So we need this brine for another process in making our fuel for our fission reactor. So we're going to have to set up a good number of machines to process this brine, but we have our network right in here. We have our brine in our AE2. So let's go take a look at the quest line and let's start throwing down some machines. First in line is going to be this chemical infuser. It is going to be what we take our brine and run it through to get chlorine and something else. What's our byproduct here? Brine. I don't honestly remember uses on that. Oh gosh, I hate it when you forget to hit enter and remove the focus. There we go. Uses. So if we come to uses and we go to the electrolytic separator, it gives us sodium, which we can use for cooling our reactor instead of water later on down the road. You need a large volume of it to convert to sodium. So we're going to store it up for a while. We'll make that change later on down the line in the series. But the one we're after right now is chlorine. This is going to be the piece for heading down to our sulfur trioxides all the way to our fissile fuels. Lots of chemistry stuff coming up in the rest of this episode. Crafted up our chemical infuser and an electrolytic separator. So we want to take an electrolytic separator first and get that going first and foremost. You know, could get a little crowded, but we got cable right here, so let's just bring it over. We'll get down and dirty. We'll go up a layer if we have to. This process is disgusting. Okay, it's just a lot, but we're gonna make it through it together. So the electrolytic separator, we are gonna grab it. What is in it? What is it making? Oh my gosh, we are making hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, that's okay because we're gonna need hydrogen chloride. Let's just make another electrolytic separator. I didn't even remember that I had that one. So we'll toss down another one. We're gonna bring over some more cable here. If we need to bring channels out, I'll have to come back and replace some of that with dense cable. No biggie. But we're gonna toss down another electrolytic separator right here. This one has nothing in it. One thing these machines both have in common, and we should move them up a block because of it, is they're gonna need power into the bottom of them. So we'll put them here. Let's grab out a flux point, and then we'll run some energy cables with an ultimate upgrade. So now they both got power. This one's going to make hydrogen and oxygen. I will get those put into tanks in a similar process to what you see us work with right here. So for this one, we're going to want to do... Oh, man, stupid mechanism and its sided stuff. Man, if we could put these in on the same side, we could do an import-export bus, and we would only need one block to interface with it. That would be awesome. Gosh. All right. So mechanism sided. Sorry for the rant. We're going to need some export buses and an import bus or a tank. Import bus. So let's grab those out. And for each of these, we're going to need to get some different things in the machine. So the export bus, the first thing that we are going to need is it needs to know that you are going to take in fluids from the back. Everything else we're gonna turn off. Okay, so, and then we need to tell you to export brine. Not gaseous brine, regular brine. We probably want some acceleration cards in here. Speed this up. And this should be making hydrogen or sodium and chlorine. Nice. And then we're going to want to take two import buses here and here. And then we need somewhere to store this on the network. Now, I don't think drawers has a solution for chemicals. Let's go see. Or functional storage, should I say. I don't think even the fluid ones, fluid drawers, is that a different mod? It's like an expansion, isn't it? Yeah, so no, it's part of functional storage. Okay, but we don't have a gas one. So we're going to have to look to our AE2. So if we come into AE2 and we look up chemical disks, we should be able to make chemical ME storage cells. So we can store all of our mechanism chemicals right inside of AE2. These are the same things you've seen for everything else. Let me get some recipes put in for us, and then we'll go over the cell workbench on setting these up and toss them in our storage. Wowzers, that was like 14 recipes I had to put in, and I had to tell it how to make, what was it? Sky osmium. So sky osmium we make in the reaction chamber with stuff we were already all making, you know, other ways. So everything there was autocraft. We've got our lava. So I had to tell it how to make those too. Oh boy. All right. So let's go for like a couple of just big boy chemical cells here. Let's go for the 1M. It'll just hold a ton of it. We can always upgrade them later if we need to, but I think this is a good capacity to start with because when you get into this mechanism stuff, it uses an absolute ton of the fuels. So this is probably going to take a couple minutes. I don't really know how long. I'll be back when they're done. There we have it. 2 1M mega chemical storage cells. I definitely didn't accidentally make source ones and just edit the video to right here. Nope, did not happen. All right, moving right along. Cell workbench. This is where we tell our cells what they can hold, how many it can hold, all the good things about a cell. So if we come into our cell workbench and toss in this chemical storage cell, we can tell it what we want in here. So for these, we're going to make each of them just hold the one chemical. So we need sodium on one. So this one can only hold sodium. And then on the other one, we want it to only hold the chlorine. And that's it. So now we can toss these two into our storage downstairs, and we will have a place for those chemicals that we're making to go. Hooray! Alrighty, let's link up these two import buses now, and these byproducts should have a place to go. Let's make sure, well, actually, as long as the sides. So the chemicals, you are going to output one on the right and one on the left. Look at it. It's like it already knew what we were doing. Put that one there, and that one there. And it should start running again because our storage is going to pull out those two chemicals. Look at that. We may not even need acceleration cards in there. Now it's just a time to let this machine run. It's going to get us chlorine and sodium. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for hydrogen and oxygen off camera if we don't need them before the end of the episode. It's starting to look like we may not fire this reactor today, and that has me sort of disappointed. So give me a few minutes to look at all this and figure out whether I should stop here or whether we may just have a longer episode. All right, y'all. So it is like the next day after the previous clip. The fission reactor and fizzle fuel and all of that is a very in-depth and intricate process. Going over that with you guys is almost too much to cram into even a half-hour episode. I did, however, go through all of it in our FTB Skies Expert episode, and so what we're going to do here is I'm going to cover how I'm going to handle the setup a little differently in this one, and if you have any questions about how to set any of it up, I'm going to toss a link up there for that video from the FTB Skies Expert series, and the setup is the same for all of the machines and the making of our fizzle fuel all the way into turning the nuclear reactor on. So I got it all done. But I had an issue that made me think I had wasted your time and my time by setting the reactor up inside of this compact machine. But then I had a light bulb and tried it, and it worked. So the problem we were having was, how do I get my nuclear waste out of this compact machine? Because for the solar neutron activator, which is the step we need to use to get to our polonium, it needs, well, the sun, because it's solar. The answer is chemical P2P tunnels. Until we get to antimatter, we can't store nuclear waste in our AE2. But a chemical P2P tunnel, thankfully, just sends chemicals through it. It doesn't care what they are. Now, whether this is an intended behavior or a loophole and maybe they patch it or something, I don't know. But this is how we're going to do it right now. I have tested it and it works. So the only real difference is that from any other setup of this reactor is that we're going to pipe our waste out through this chemical P2P tunnel. And then just to, demonstrate, you always want to pick up your input side first with your memory card. So we're going to shift right click to copy the configuration for this. It is currently unlinked, but this will be the input side. This is just linked to our regular stuff. Now this is a tunnel inside of a tunnel, but that's okay because we want to keep the waste on our main network side of things. And now that will allow us, once we turn this on, to get our waste out of this compact machine and somewhere else. So my thought is, let's just put it somewhere out of sight, out of mind, and then in case something happens, maybe it won't melt down our base. And so I was thinking that the place where we might be able to do that would be to just look up. You know, we've already got all these chunks loaded, and I think I can probably go far enough up that we're not in render distance. So if I just stay in one of these loaded chunks, like right here, and let's grab us out some stone or something. Stone's fine. You'll notice I also have this angel block right here in my inventory. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to fly way on up in the sky. I'm going to toss down an angel block and make us a little platform. I'll meet you up there. So you're probably wondering, well, Wooly, how are you going to get your AE2 all the way up there? We covered these way earlier in the series, but kind of in a broken and disjointed way because I realized I couldn't make the setup kit. But I've already tagged one downstairs, and we're going to connect this device right here to our AE2 network. And now we have AE2 up here. What we're going to do is we are going to bring out a little bit of ME cable. Then we're going to place down a chemical P2P tunnel. Just in case you don't know, let's go over that real quick. So these are all the different types of P2P tunnels. Chemical being one of them. To make a regular P2P tunnel into chemical, place it down in the world, and right-click it with a tank. Once you right-click it with the tank, you'll notice now that says chemical P2P tunnel. As far as converting them back, I don't know. Doesn't look like it's there. Can I shift right-click it in the air to reset it, maybe? Nope. Looks like maybe we can't convert it back. If you know how, put it in the comments down below. So now, here we go. We're going to place our chemical P2P tunnel right here, and then out of it, we're going to bring some pressurized tube. We're going to bring this in like that, and then we're also going to probably want to do this with like a buffer. That way at night, it doesn't like back up and overflow, but honestly, this tube holds a bunch, and we're not going to leave this running because I'm not trying to blow up my base. But there we have it. So now we'll toss down a solar neutron activator. I'm going to clear all the faces and tell it that you can take an input from the front. And this should run and provide us with polonium once we go turn our reactor on. Now, for the ease of getting back up here, I am going to toss down a waystone and call it polonium, because that's the main thing we're going to be coming up and down from here for, but we don't have to fly up here each time. So let's head on back down to base and pop back into our compact machine. We should be good to just turn this on. Now, we can increase the burn rate. Oh wow, that is super loud. Let's save your eardrums. Whew. Sorry. All right. Whew, I can hear myself think now. But anyways, you'll see this is running, and our waste is actually disappearing. So the steam is being pumped out. You can see our current burn rate of 0.1. Temperature isn't even growing. We could probably put our burn rate up to 0.2 and see how that goes. The main thing we want to do is make sure we're not stacking up on temperature here, overheating, and then this should keep us from having any issues of that sort with it running out of fuel and blowing up because of that. So everything's being handled, and you'll notice there's no waste building up. That waste is actually being piped right here. And then if we head back to the overworld and we head back up to the sky, well, actually we could just do it with our hearthstone, or what, a waystone, warp stone, that's what it's called. We can use our warp stone, and we can go to the polonium. So now you're going to notice there's nothing in here, but that is because we didn't link this tunnel. Right click the tunnel, and I don't know if you guys saw that, but this is now making polonium. How much polonium do we need for a polonium pellet? Good question. I don't know. Polonium pellets are made in the pressurized reaction chamber, and they take 1 bucket of polonium and fluorite dust to become a polonium pellet. Now, we should be able to just store this, or we may have to P2P it back on another tunnel, or we could process it into item form up here. I think processing it into item form up here is probably the better option. So we're going to go pressurized reaction chamber. Do we not have? We don't have the recipe in here for that somehow. Let's get it added. All right, went ahead and got the pattern in for the pressurized reaction chamber and did a little bit of setting up here. So this is going to make our polonium. We now need to tell it where it can send the polonium. So for chemicals, we're going to tell it that it can output them to the right. Auto eject is on, and that should mean that we'll see polonium right here in this barrel because it doesn't have anywhere to go, and polonium doesn't degrade, if I remember correctly, in the radioactive waste barrel, just like nuclear waste and spent nuclear waste will. Speaking of spent nuclear waste, we're going to need somewhere to send that, but we'll get to that when it's time. So we're going to try to use an import-export bus on our pressurized reaction chamber right here. Now, the pressurized reaction chamber needs for us to send, it needs polonium in here, and it's also going to need for us to send fluorite in here, if I remember correctly, for our polonium pellet. Let's go check the recipe. So we need water, polonium, and fluorite dust. So how do we get fluorite dust? Is that a crusher recipe? Cool. So we're going to need to make a crusher recipe for fluorite dust. We're going to use the import-export bus to export water and the fluorite dust. We'll toss a crafting card and some acceleration cards in here so that it can keep up if the speed is too much. Let me get all that set up. I'll be right back with you. So here we have our setup for polonium pellets. We are going to need a couple of these, correct, for our gravitational, for our jetpack units. We need 2 per, so 4 total for that. And yeah, so we're going to need 4 total polonium pellets, which means I'm going to have to be in the world sort of attending this to make sure that it doesn't blow up while we get it. And on that note, this has been a really long episode. If you have made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. You are a trooper, and I really appreciate you watching. Sorry it was kind of all over the place. I always underestimate mechanism reactors, and they always bite me. I always go to record a video, and sometimes it ends up being like a twice recording. So this time, you know, I did the best I could. Hopefully you found it entertaining. Hopefully you were able to learn something. And with that, we'll see y'all next time.